Welcome to Dave Talks Ball on this November 11th, 2024 episode, folks. Week 11 told us a lot. Hey, Georgia is human as well. We've seen that all year against Kentucky. We've seen it at times even against Auburn. We saw it against Alabama. And I was one that picked Georgia going into this game. We'll talk about it here more in a minute, but I just want to get off. We found out a lot about Ole Miss. We found out Georgia has holes exclusively, just like everybody else. Bama, don't doubt them out. Don't count them out just yet, folks. As we saw that on Saturday night, you cannot keep them down yet. That was a big boy performance. That was about as dominant as a win on the road against another good football team that I can remember. It's probably 2015 when they went to Athens and beat Georgia bad in the rain. Coincidentally, it was raining there as well. So we'll get off to the Week 11 recap, all 6 matchups right off the bat. We'll talk a little road to Atlanta right after that. Then talk a little college basketball. Auburn getting a big win against Houston on Saturday night. That felt like an Elite Eight game. I know it's thrown around a lot, but Auburn may be playing the best basketball. Maybe they probably are playing the best basketball in the SEC right now. It just got done. That's why we're 2 minutes late, 3 minutes late. I apologize. Finish it up watching Alabama versus McNeese State. Remember Will Wade and the boys? Alabama didn't play great, but they got the win against a team who I think is going to win the Southern Conference and probably be in the NCAA tournament. I'll go over. We released something on SEC Unfiltered today. Arena rankings, and I just wanted to go through it. People were asking, "Hey, what does it mean?" It's a combination of, hey, how hostile this place is, how hard is it to play in here, and it's also kind of a mixture of kind of how nice the arena is. Again, it's subjective, folks. I know people are going to get mad, but it is what it is. We had Auburn fans who I had Auburn Arena ranked 1, and they were mad at the Coleman Coliseum. Alabama's arena was ranked 4. We'll look ahead to Week 12, and then we will just quickly review my money-making weekend. I don't know if I have a ton of time without making you go a little over, but we will give you that. 7-3 this past week. We're right back at 45%. Remember, 55% is the goal to get in, folks. But before we get started, guys, remember this episode of Dave Talks Ball is brought to you by our buddies over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com and use code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. Guys, a lot of good fun prop bets to use out of those guys. I always tell the story all the time when I'm getting my buddies getting involved. Had a good Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels bet last year for, what was it, the Labor Day weekend game in Orlando against Florida State. Won some big money, guys. Won some big moolah. But let's get right into it. Let's don't waste any more time, guys. Ole Miss overwhelmed the Georgia Bulldogs. Ole Miss beats Georgia 28-10. I went back and watched this game completely like I do every game yesterday afternoon. Some things that kind of just stick out. I thought Jackson Dart, after he went out, or he came back in and had a very point guard type mindset. If you don't believe me, go watch the third quarter at the 6:57 mark where he steps up in the pocket and he literally looks like a point guard, and he does to Jordan Wilkins, just an easy, just not lateral pass, but just parallel pass. And it was just an easy dish. He looked very comfortable after he came off the injury. How about Austin Simmons? Coming in cold turkey off the bench and kind of keeping the boat right. You had Jackson Dart coming off the injury, threw a pick. It couldn't have been a worse start for Ole Miss. But Austin Simmons came in and settled him in. He's going to potentially be in the weekend rotation for Ole Miss baseball at bare minimum, a middle reliever. Saw him pitch one time last year. Who were they playing? Somebody at a conference. Maybe in Maryland? No, that was 2 years ago. So somebody they played at a conference last year. I saw him at Swayze Field. Thought Ole Miss's offensive line played its best game of the season. Was it awesome? No, but you also got to think Georgia has dudes like Nazir Stackhouse, Michael Williams. They're going to play their best as well. They're going to play and make plays as well. But I thought Ole Miss's offensive line played its best they played all year. Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss Jr. did a phenomenal job of getting matchups against Georgia's linebackers, a bunch of crossers, really trying to match up guys like Jordan Watkins on C.J. Allen, and I thought they were getting their depth. They were in their bag. They did a really good job. And I'll say this, I thought Georgia got whipped like I had not seen in the Kirby Smart era before, folks. They got whipped like Alabama, as y'all know, has beaten Georgia, 6-1? Kirby's played himself down. They've beaten Georgia. They've had their fair share of success against Georgia. Let's call a spade, folks. It hadn't been like that. That was a physical domination by Ole Miss, and that's what they paid the big bucks for. That's what they spent $10 to $12 million on to retain guys like Jared Ivey, who was the SEC Defensive Player of the Week, to get guys like Walter Nolan, to get guys like Prince of Malayan, To bring guys in like Trey Amos, to bring guys in like Pooh Paul, that's what you pay that for, guys. That's what you pay the big price for, is because interior defensive linemen, you can't game plan against them, guys. You cannot game plan against them. They are wrecking havoc. Again, Ernest Green, the left tackle for Georgia, the right tackle, Monroe Freeling for Georgia. They're having nightmares probably about Princely U still. So across the board, phenomenal game for Georgia. For Ole Miss. Signature win for Lane Kiffin. You could tell this was a big one. I think Ole Miss is set up well to make the college football playoffs. They should beat Florida. They should beat Mississippi State. So I would expect that. I think ESPN even agrees the highest chance of winning out for an SEC team is Ole Miss. I would have to agree with that. John Saunders, I'm looking at my notes here too. I thought he was all over the field, had a pass breakup, had a forced fumble, did a really good job. He was flying around. So Ole Miss defense, give Pete Golden and them credit. I think it's a lot of personnel one-on-one winning, a lot of guys winning their one-on-one battles more than it is just Pete Golden dialing it up. And I think Pete Golden's fine. Two things to be true at once. I think he underwhelmed a little bit at Alabama, but he's brought up this Ole Miss defense. So give him credit from that perspective. Big win for Ole Miss. For Georgia, offensive line was as bad as it could get, huh? Tate Ratledge coming off the tightrope surgery at right guard, wasn't at his best. Heard he woke up sick on Saturday morning, but still wanted to go because he hadn't played in weeks, guys. He had the itch to come back and help his team. And not a must-win situation, but a game they would have liked to have. Like I mentioned, Ernest Green, Monroe Freeling, just Princely UMLA, and did whatever he wanted. Nate Frazier, we see why he has not been getting in the rotation consistently, but now he has to with Trevor Etienne with a banged-up ribs. Obviously, Roderick Robinson out. Branson Robinson out. But you got to hold on to the football, guys. You put it on the ground twice. I thought him fumbling on the screen there I thought that was the game. I remember texting a buddies, our group, and was like, it's over. It's over after you fumble that. And you hear these people who are at practice every day like, why doesn't he play? I'm like, why isn't he playing more? Like, dude, he can't hold on to the football. Dude, if you can't pass protect, you can't hold in the football, you can't play in this league. I don't care how young or talented you are. And he's going to be a good player. It's just those things can't happen in a big one. On the defensive side for Georgia, again, this is a year they bust a lot outside of that Texas game. Maybe a lot's an overstatement, but they bust more so than they normally do. I thought the nickelback Janelle Aguero was back to his normal self of not playing well. I thought he played well against Texas. He took any goodwill I had left and threw it away against this game. Kirby eventually he took him out after a minute. He was not good when you go back and watch the game. And then offensively, I thought Georgia could have. Look, they're limited a little bit on the outside until they miss Brock Bowers, they miss Ladd McConkey, they miss Ra Thomas, they miss Colby Young. But I thought they could attack the edges on the run game a little bit, like Dylan Bell in jet sweeps. I thought Mike Bobo could have went back to that. I know Pete Golden probably would have adjusted, but just to get something going, they don't trust Carson Beck right now. Something has to change, and I don't know if it will. Because, look what's ahead. It's a really good Tennessee defensive front next week. I don't know if you can fix it in 1 week. And Carson Beck looks like a deer in headlights. And I don't really think his teammates believe in him. I don't think his coaches believe in him. I think it is what it is, guys. I think it is what it is. I got to go put in my prediction for Tennessee-Georgia by tomorrow before we do that preview. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, that line opened up. We'll talk about it in the week 12. Look at it. At 12.5. Now it's down to 9.5. I'm like, I know Tennessee's banged up, but what does Vegas know? Against any decent SEC team, I don't know if I'd give up 13.5 right now to Georgia with that offensive line and Carson Beck. I don't know. I really don't think so. But Georgia, backs against the wall this week, heading home against Tennessee. That's why it's tough to pick against them in this game because you're sitting there, you're kind of like, I go against everything I believe in that program. Everything would tell you Kirby, Smart, and them do not lose that game at home with their season on the line. But you also got to realize emotions wear off, and it's football. It's a line of scrimmage game, and Tennessee definitely has an advantage with their defensive front against the Georgia offensive line right now. It's just calling a spade a spade. But Ole Miss couldn't come at a better time, get that emotional win off your chest, go to work here these next 2 weeks. You got 2 very winnable games coming up in Gainesville, and then Mississippi State comes for the Egg Bowl. I think Ole Miss should be in the playoffs. Let's go to the comments a little bit. Tim Skelton says, hotty toddy. Yeah, big win. Biggest win for Ole Miss. Probably what, 2000. You tell me, Tim, if you're still listening, and I appreciate you listening, man. Probably since 2014 Alabama, I'd probably say. Mr. Bucknuts coming in. Buckeyes versus Ole Miss for the Natty. Wouldn't be too shocking. That's not too far off, but Mr. Bucknuts, appreciate you listening. Ole Miss looks dangerous. So does Bama. Going to be interesting. Dart is throwing darts. Pass rush is crazy. Yeah, Dart's starting to hit his stride a little bit. Mr. Bucknuts, we'll talk about Atlanta here in just a minute. But just going off the Ole Miss game there, moving on. Beat down in Baton Rouge. Beat down in the Red Stick, folks. Bama beats LSU 46-13, and it really didn't even feel like it was that close. Bama executed it. If you listen to any of my stuff all week. Excuse me, I need some water here. You don't know when I said it. If Bama can execute the offensive game plan we discussed off last week, running the football in between the tackles, you can commit to it, you can run on this LSU defensive front. It was the best offensive line LSU had seen, Alabama's offensive line, especially interior, with Parker Brailsford, Tyler Booker, and then you got Jaden Roberts, and yet Geno Vandermark had to come in and play a little bit. They committed to it. They utilized Jalen Milroe. And Jalen Milroe off bye weeks just looks like a totally different player, totally different athlete, has that burst, that acceleration coming off bye weeks. Last year, coming off against LSU, 8 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 games against LSU. Coming off the bye week in the first half against Georgia, looked refreshed. And then Saturday night looked refreshed. I mean, the Alabama interior offensive line was dominant. Brailsford, Booker were great. I thought across the board, Bama's offense loved the game plan by Nick Sheridan and them. LSU, Brian Kelly, Blake Baker just struggled to stop a running quarterback. It is what it is at this point. But you had 2 weeks to prepare for that. Brian Kelly even said post-game, you probably think, what were we doing for the last 2 weeks? I had that thought, Coach Kelly. I really did. Thought defensively, Alabama, Deontay Lawson, Jahad Campbell played their best games of the year. The pass breakup by Campbell in that first drive to let LSU settle for a field goal, I thought changed the momentum of the game. I mean, LSU fans will tell you Kyron Lacey dropped it. I thought it was a good play by Jahad Campbell. I thought he played his best game in a crimson uniform. I mean, he had stats across the board, 12 tackles, a pass breakup, a sack, did a really good job. They took advantage of LSU center 79, DJ Chester, did a really bad job. I mean, he's the one that let Jahad Campbell come in the A-gap, off stopping Alabama on downs that forced the Nussmeier turnover right before half. That was DJ Chester right there. Thought on the defensive side of the ball, Alabama not only on LSU's defensive side of the ball, the interior couldn't get going. I mean, Alabama took that game personally on the offensive line. I thought Grand Valley State transferred JVR Suggs, if you're keeping it home, number 31. He was unplayable. Again, I've said it all year. The defensive personnel for LSU is going to catch up to them, folks. I said they would go 9-3. I still think they go 9-3. I think they'll probably beat Vanderbilt. Not sure, though. Beat Florida this week. And then you got to beat Oklahoma at home. I think they'll get all 3. But I thought this was a 9-3 team because Brian Kelly's paying for his sins from 3 years ago when you didn't get this defensive personnel right. I think he just kind of said, again, I haven't heard this. Well, I have heard that's what happened. I haven't heard this is his thought process, but I think he was like, well, I'm going to LSU. They've always had loaded talent. I mean, it'll figure itself out. Well, it didn't. So they're paying for it right now. And as we know, usually year 3 is a big year for Brian Kelly, going back to his Cincinnati days, going back to his Notre Dame days. This year 3 at LSU seems more like a rebuild because of the lack of recruiting, the lack of player personnel, the player personnel evaluation on that side of the football, on the defensive side of the football, under Brian Kelly initially, under Bill Polian, and under Matt House. It is what it is, and they're paying for that right now. I thought the Nussmeier fumble after the stop and the Will Campbell holding call they were momentum killers. And what do you got to say about Alabama, folks? Jalen Milroe just needs to start paying taxes in Baton Rouge. Just owns LSU. And Alabama and Tiger Stadium. I posted a stat today. Alabama has more wins in Tiger Stadium than LSU has total wins against Alabama. Let me repeat that. Alabama has more wins in Tiger Stadium. Remember, a place they've only lost 5 times in since 1970, and they play there every other year, I think, except one time they did it in that time span. Remember, Alabama, more wins in Tiger Stadium than LSU has over Alabama. That is dominance in a very hostile environment. That's impressive. That is impressive. No, I mean, it didn't even feel like 13, guys. I'll tell you, but no one saw that coming. I didn't. I picked Alabama to win. I said going in, it was a coin flip. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. For Alabama, just like I said with Ole Miss, you got to feel pretty good about winning out now. You got Mercer this week. Now, granted, the Bears are 9-1 now. Don't be doubting them. Their coach is up for the Southern Miss job. Again, they're fighting for an FCS title. Then you go to Norman. Oklahoma's on a bye week. Things aren't well with Brent Venables there. I see people trying to sign protest not to go to the game next week. Maybe it's some random fan I saw. But things aren't well in Norman. Let's just put it that way. Bama should win that. Then they host Auburn at home in the Iron Bowl. Another game you would think they should win. They should be sitting at 10-2. They have more wins against top 25 teams than the top 5 in the AP poll have combined. Alabama's not getting left out of the playoffs, folks, at 10-2. There's a good chance if they win out, they're playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship. We'll talk about the road to Atlanta a little bit, but I'm just telling you guys, even if Alabama loses in Atlanta, I'm letting you in on a little secret. They're not letting out the team who loses in the SEC championship game, guys. They're not setting that precedent. Just give you a heads up there, folks. But Alabama, massive win in Baton Rouge, 42-13. Again, like I said, probably the most dominant win. And y'all know Alabama's had dominant wins. Most dominant road win against a good team since 2015, probably. Since 2015, maybe 16, Tennessee, A&M. But again, LSU may be better than those teams. But no, I thought give Kane Womack credit. He's not getting enough credit. We're talking Jalen Milroe. Kane Womack had a phenomenal play. You saw Garrett Nussmeier. When you go back and watch the game and you saw it live, he's checking in and out of the wrong plays. He thinks Bama's coming, so he gets a quick screen out, and Bama's dropping back. Deontay Lawson, 0, and Jahad Campbell, 11, are just dropping back into coverage at the second level. He was guessing wrong all day. Deshaun Jones played well. Bray Hubbard, who's from my hometown in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, had a pick, had a big hit out in the flats against Caden Durham. Bama's defense played well. Now, is it sustainable? I don't know. The Q Robinson edge rusher injury is going to be, I don't know. They may not pay for that here in the last 3 regular season games, but maybe in Atlanta for the SEC championship game, and certainly in the playoffs. They need guys like Quay Russo to step up. They're a little thin on the outside spots at the Bandit and Wolf spots. That'll be something they're going to continue to build depth in. So that's a long-term issue there. That's a long-term issue there. But Bama, got to say, Bama visuals, I appreciate you listening, man. That's what I'm worried about, is making the SEC championship and losing. I'm telling you, brother, they're not leaving out the loser of the SEC championship game or the Big Ten championship game. They're just not. Because if they do, I wanted to talk about this in the road Atlanta, but I brought up your comment, and I appreciate you bringing it up, brother. You got to think the Big Ten and the SEC are sitting there trying to figure out what they want to do for the next 2 years. Do they want to go start their own league? You know what'll really piss them off? You know what'll really piss the Big Ten and SEC off? Leaving their team who loses in the conference champ and has a third loss. That'll really piss them off, and they'll go, for lack of a better term, take their ball and go make their own 70-person league and have their own championship. It's not a good precedent to set either. No way do I believe a 10-2 Alabama goes in there, loses to Texas at 10 and finishes 10-3, is left out of the playoffs when you factor in they beat Georgia. They went on the road and gave Brian Kelly his first loss in Tiger Stadium, or his first beatdown in Tiger Stadium. That South Carolina win looks better as the weeks go on. I mean, it's a real South Carolina team that probably at the very least is going to win 8 games, if not 9. Wisconsin isn't as bad as you thought you'd fall. Going into last week, Alabama had not played a team with a losing record. Now, South Florida ended up losing last week to Navy, and that hurt that. That's the only team under 500 Alabama's played. Now, Mercer's not going to hurt that, but certainly Oklahoma and Auburn will hurt that stat. But again, Alabama's not being left out, guys. I don't think, even if it's not Alabama playing in the SEC championship, I don't think the loser is being left out. I think it's a terrible precedent to set. You really want the SEC and Big Ten to break away? You leave out their runner-ups, because what are we going to penalize teams for making their conference championships? That's just no. Yeah, we can't do that. I think the playoff committee. It's full of football coaches and football minds now. Guys like Jim Grobe are on this. So I think they're going to give them the benefit of the doubt there. And you know Greg Sankey is going to be the ear of a lot of these guys on the playoff committee. It is what it is. People make, what's up for the SEC? The SEC gets leniency. Yeah, because Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti from the Big Ten commissioner, run college football and college athletics. It is what it is, folks. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's pull back the curtain now. Come on. Bama visual. So you're saying even if we lose in the SEC championship, we will not be left out? No, I don't see how, especially Alabama. I mean, look at Alabama's the best resume of anybody out of the potential 10-2 teams in the SEC. I mean, Alabama's won a ton of – Alabama has the toughest conference schedule out of the real 6-7 contenders, if you want to say Missouri is the 7th team. We'll talk about that the road to Atlanta a little bit, but I think Big 12, ACC, their runner-up's probably going to get left out, but not the Big 10, SEC. They're not going to set that precedent unless they're just interested in running off the SEC and Big 10. And you can say what you want about that, but it is what it is. Texas plays a complete game. I thought it was their best game of the year, folks. I'll be completely honest with you. I thought Texas had their best game of the year. Hammered Florida 49-17. Let's call a spade a spade. Florida wasn't going to win this game with Aiden Warner. I didn't think it was a terribly played called game by Billy Napier. Look, again, Dave Shoemate, Dave Talks Ball here, SEC Unfiltered contributor. I just wanted to work in college football for 9 years in recruiting departments, mostly across the SEC. And I say this because I want people to understand. So I see people on Twitter, on social media and stuff on Saturdays just bashing play calling of Billy Napier and them at times. Like, what are you doing? It's like, dude, this is their third string quarterback. There's only so much you can put in a game plan that you feel comfortable he can run without until Pete Kwiatkowski, the Texas defense coordinator, then start to kind of pick up on your tendencies. Hey, you're throwing on first down, back-to-back drives, 3 drives in a row, and if you don't complete any yards on first down, you're running. Like, you can tell they started to pick up on that. Again, you're limited with your third string quarterback. Look at one of the plays. They were running outside zone to the left. And the running back goes left and the lineman go left. He goes right. Usually, if one person's wrong and the other 10 guys are right, it's usually the guy that's wrong, guys. Y'all know that. So you can only put so much in. Pete Kwiatkowski, and them caught on to what they were doing. You were limited. I think that's why they put that statement out last week. They knew it was going to be bad in Austin. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just kind of putting 2 and 2 together. 2 + 2 = 4. Whether it's smoke or fire, whatever saying you want to use. It is what it is. Florida is what they are with their third string quarterback. Most teams would be. Before you say Cardell Jones, Ohio State fans, there's an exception to every rule. But Texas's most complete game. Do not take away anything they did going into this game offensively. At the very least offensively. Because that was a Florida defense coming into that game, folks, that was creating a bunch of turnovers against Kentucky and Georgia coming into that one. They were, Quinn Ewers finished 19 for 27, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That was his best game of the season. And again, don't take it lightly, guys. Florida's offense, not very good with their third string quarterback. We are all aware of that. That defense, though, led by Ron Roberts and Austin Armstrong, it was improving each week. They were forcing a lot of turnovers. Against Texas, they did not. They did not. Thought it was a phenomenal game plan. I love Sark going for it on 4th and 1 from his own 20 to start the game. I talked to somebody on Twitter about it. They disagreed. But I was like, dude, they're playing with their third string quarterback. Even if you don't get it, you feel like your defense, who's been playing phenomenal with Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins. Are they Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat? No, but they're better than a lot of us thought. They are. And I love Alfred Collins, by the way. Love Vernon Broughton. When I worked at Texas A&M, recruited both of them. Both of them have phenomenal mothers. Glad they're starting to hit their ceiling and getting their real time in the sun, I guess you would say. But they did a phenomenal job. This Texas defense is, I think, legit. There hadn't really been a bad game. I know Georgia beat them, but they're putting some bad spots. The defense really didn't play that. What, they forced 3 turnovers against Carson Beck? It was not the defense in that one. But I know, overall, Anthony Hill, Andrew Makuba, you just got some real players there. Michael Taft, I love seeing him on the back end. Texas's defense is legit. I would say right now the defenses I trust the most in the SEC right now are probably Ole Miss, Texas. I'd probably say 4. South Carolina and Tennessee. I couldn't say 3 without saying Tennessee or South Carolina. I think those are the top 4 defenses in the league right now. I mean, I'd love to see other comments in there. I mean, anybody else want to say who else the top defenses are in the league? I think you'd have to say them. But Florida moving on. They host LSU this week. Maybe get DJ Lagway back. That'd be a miracle, by the way, wouldn't it? When he got carted off and they said it was a hamstring injury against Georgia, dude, I thought it pulled off the bone. Sorry if that's too, I guess, in-depth. I know that sounds painful even to hear. But you get carted off because of a hamstring injury? That's like, man, that pulled off the bone. That's going to be reattached. But he's going to be questionable this week? I don't know. Maybe he plays against LSU. The positive thing they have is how motivated is this LSU team going to be, folks? I mean, how motivated is LSU going to be this week going into this game off a lost Alabama? You guys who followed the series against Alabama for LSU, they used to play Arkansas a lot after that game. And Bama used to play Mississippi State. We remember when the Bama LSU game was in its prime, 2 physical teams loaded with NFL talent. We all remember those games. The next week, when LSU played Arkansas and Bama played Mississippi State, those were some ugly games because those teams were tired, and usually the loser was kind of checked out because they were out of the SEC West race. This is LSU again this year. What do they bring to Gainesville? Lagway plays, he's decent. They may have a shot. Defense can keep them in if they keep playing, if they keep forcing turnovers. But it was not their day in Austin. I thought it was a complete game for Texas. And I think Texas needs to keep looking good, folks. They do. They get Arkansas this week because, again, we'll talk about it, the playoff race here in a minute. We'll put it on here in a minute. I don't want to spoil it. But Texas gets a dominant win against Florida. Missouri outlast Oklahoma in a wild one, huh? How about Drew Pine? Pull the box score. How about Drew Pine, man? Playing after what he did against Alabama, against Auburn, you're like, dude. I mean, that's why I picked Oklahoma. I was like, I can't believe in Drew Pine. And that last couple minutes of the game was wild. But Drew Pine, 14 for 27, not awesome, 143 yards, but 3 touchdowns. And you know what I love, and you know what coaches love? 0 turnovers, folks. The big donut, the goose egg. That puts you in opportunities to win football games, folks. It puts you in opportunities to win football games. And you know why Missouri won that game, folks? Do you have any clue why they won this game? Yeah, wild finish. But because Missouri was +3 in turnover margin. Oklahoma had 4 turnovers to Missouri's 1, and it could have been a lot more for Oklahoma there. It could have 5 or 6. They put a couple on the ground. They recovered. But that's why. +3 in turnover margin, Missouri. Drew Pine didn't turn the football over, gave him a shot, and Jackson Arnold was not any good. 15 for 24, 74 yards. Just not good across the ground. I thought Oklahoma would go for over 100 yards rushing. I was right. They went 122. I mean, you couldn't make a case for any one of these teams to win this game. Just wild, ugly game across the board. I mean, look at the conclusion of the first half. Oklahoma's punter had as many passing yards as Jackson Arnold. That's awful. Again, I said they would go for 100 yards. I thought it'd look a little better. I can say it, though, because the Sooner ground game, they got no traction outside of just some random Jackson Arnold scrambles, which have been good for the offense at time. I remember seeing him pick up some of that in Oxford a couple weeks ago against Ole Miss. But, man, Oklahoma's offense just somehow it just looks more incompetent as the weeks go on. More incompetent. But Missouri, 1 key fumble, nearly lost in the game, though. I mean, they only had 1. Remember, I said they were +3 in turnover margin. But it was a critical one that they had. It easily could have lost in the game. Like I said, Oklahoma, 6 fumbles, 4 lost, including a scoop and score at Los Miami, and that was the difference. Both quarterbacks weren't great, but Drew Pine wasn't bad. 3 touchdowns. And great, it wasn't like he was dropping bombs over Baghdad over here. He was just making the competent plays he had to make. Now, do I believe what Eli Drakowitz is saying, Missouri still has a chance in the playoffs? I don't. Even if they went 10-2 and had a good road win against South Carolina, 2 of your wins or 2 of your losses are blowouts. To Texas A&M on the road into Alabama, and I know Alabama was without ready cooked for a half. But again, guys, 2 blowouts. I don't know. I mean, what's going to be your biggest win at South Carolina, which would have to happen this week, which I don't think you're going to do. Again, Connor Tolson is out, and Missouri's had phenomenal injury luck the past few years, guys. The last year and a half, I don't really think they may have had 1 guy miss a start last year, and that's what people forget about. I'm glad I'm talking about Oklahoma here. Injuries happen, guys. In some years, you're lucky. Some years you're not. Remember when I was at Auburn in 2016, we were competing for the SEC West. Now, were we better than Alabama? No, we were not. But we lost Cam Petley and Kerryon Johnson in a week. We were down to Malik Miller, Cam Martin, who I love to death, by the way. That was really kind of it. You can just lose depth across the board, especially at certain positions at the offensive line, running backs, receivers. If we see, I'm preaching to the choir with Oklahoma fans here. But Missouri gets a big one. That was one you'd like to have if you're Oklahoma, because I don't know if you're going to get to 6. Because you play Alabama, you're in a bye week this week, which you get to hear for 2 weeks how bad you are. It sounds like people may be moving on to Thunder basketball now in Oklahoma City. I know Chet Holmgren got hurt, but still, frustrating. Frustrating if you're an Oklahoma fan. What do you think about Joe Castiglione giving Brent Venables the extension now in the summer in July, months after he completed his 2nd season? Just interesting. Brent Venables is going to be a hot seat next year, guys. I think it's going to be Brent Venables, probably Sam Pittman, Hugh Freeze, Billy Napier. Will probably all 4 be. There'll be some hot seats in the SEC next year, guys. Probably about a quarter of them will be on a hot seat. But that may be with adding 2 more teams to make it 16, maybe a yearly thing. South Carolina, folks, just keep doing it. They just keep doing it. Gamecocks get a massive 28-7 win over Vanderbilt. The nightmare happened for Vanderbilt. Kyle Kennard every Saturday, just been a dominant force. This was the best defensive front South Carolina or Vanderbilt has seen, and they just controlled the game. If you wondered if Vanderbilt could take advantage of maybe South Carolina's offensive tackles to pull the upset, no, they didn't. The Gamecocks were allowing 13.6. They were allowing sacks on 13.6% of their pass plays and didn't allow 1 on Saturday. So give South Carolina and that offensive line unit credit. I thought Vanderbilt maybe could have taken advantage. I thought South Carolina was going to win the game. I picked them to win the game. But, man, Lenore Sellers keeps doing some real things. Reminds me of what Anthony Richardson, what we thought he could be. He was making plays. Guys are bouncing off of him, strong lower body, making plays off improvision. Like what you can see, man, 3 straight for South Carolina. Just getting big wins across the board there. Vandy needed a bye week. They needed a bye week. 6 straight weeks. You could tell Diego probably looked a little fresher than he did against Auburn. But again, I think that more tape's getting out on Vanderbilt's offense and Tim Beck's offense. That's not a slight to them. They've totally overachieved. I think Clark Lee's going to be SEC Coach of the Year. But I think more tape gets out on them. Coordinators talk how to defend them. I'm sure a lot of people have called Kane Womack, and he probably has a million different things he would have done differently a couple of weeks ago against Vanderbilt. But still, Vanderbilt needed this bye week before they go to Baton Rouge and before they wrap up to host Tennessee to get in to try to get that 7th win. South Carolina staring at 9-3, 8-4 in the face. Host Missouri this week. They still got Wofford left. And who they got? Wofford and then in South Carolina, right? That's who they got? Yeah. Let me make sure. It's South Carolina's schedule, right? I know it's Missouri this week. They still have Wofford. They still got to go at Clemson. Am I right on that? Let me see. Yeah, Missouri, Wofford, and Clemson. So 9-3 is real. They just got to bowl eligibility. Give it up to the Gamecocks. They're hitting bowl eligibility, baby. They're not whipping out the shirts like Missouri did, but they're bowl eligible. Gamecocks. I think our guy Cole Thompson said, "Is there 15 teams better than South Carolina right now?" No, I don't think so. I think they're legitimately probably a top 20 team when you compare the resumes, because you can't forget about the losses in the past. You can't. But again, this is a hot, sizzling football team right now. I'm not putting a prediction in right now, but I fully expect them to win this week against a limited Missouri team. What are we asking about Brady Cook this week? Connor Tolson on the offensive line's hurt. Shane Beamer's due to beat Eli Drinkwitz. And just so y'all know, these two coaches can't stand each other. They would both love to dance on each other's graves. Shane Beamer don't like Eli Drinkwitz. Eli Drinkwitz don't like Shane Beamer. It is very well known throughout the coaching industry that these two do not get along. Drinks had Shane Beamer's number. He has not lost to Beamer. There was ever a time to change that. That is this weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that one as we look ahead. Then finally, the last one right there. Tennessee. Sorry, our banner here. Tennessee hangs on versus Vanderbilt across the board here. They get the 33-14 win. Kind of feel like Tennessee limped to the finish line here on Saturday night, didn't it? Nico Iamaleava didn't come out after halftime, an upper body injury. But today, Josh Heupel said he will be fine. Before the injury, he passed for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, had one to Squirrel White. Dante Thornton continues to impress. Even Thornton left, though, with an apparent injury. Tennessee's beat up on the offensive side of the ball. Dylan Sampson took a lot of pressure off. Gaston Moore, who was a walk-on quarterback at UCF when I was there, saw his most significant action he's had in 4 seasons. But Sampson rushed for 149 yards on 30 carries. They got to start limiting his possessions. They need to find some kind of backup quarterback here, folks. They got to find some kind of backup option. You can't keep going into last week. I think I'd have to go look to see what Genty had this past week. But Ashton Genty only had 17 more carries on the season than Dylan Sampson did, and Boise State's trying to ride him to a Heisman Trophy ceremony. I think Dylan Sampson had like 50-something more carries than the next guy in the SEC, and Jarquez Hunter, if I remember right. It's amazing. They have to find a number 2 to help him out, because remember, the season's longer now. If Tennessee makes the college football playoff, they certainly could. They still control their own destiny. They win in Athens this week. They're probably going to Atlanta for the SEC championship. But they need guys like Peyton Lewis, Cam Seldon, someone to step up and help take the load off to be that number 2. You can't keep giving him 25, 30 carries. 30, especially against Mississippi State. It's a lot of carries, guys. That's my concern with Tennessee. That's my concern. It's just overall help. Can they get to the finish line? Also, Tennessee's defense. I love it, by the way. But the last 2 games against Kentucky, Mississippi State, they probably had their worst performance against the run. Probably their worst in 9 games this past week, and allow Mississippi State, who isn't great running the football, rush for 179 yards and let Davon Booth run for 125 yards. So they got to get that shored up. Again, they're going up against a Georgia offensive line that's not playing their best right now, but a big one this week. Tennessee controls their own destiny. They win this week. They're in the playoffs. Probably going to be playing in Atlanta for a bye. They lose. They could be putting themselves in a tough situation, because besides the Alabama win, what would be their second best win? Vanderbilt, if they were to get it. Maybe NC State. No, but I'm probably going to say Vanderbilt. So again, Tennessee doesn't have a lot to hang their hat on because the schedule wasn't that difficult. And that's what I say. If you play Mississippi State and Mississippi State and Kentucky in the same season, it's really not a great schedule. I know Georgia played them too, but again, that's what makes Georgia's conference schedule a little weaker, if we're being honest. But no, across the board there, guys, big win for Tennessee, but they haven't had a bigger one this weekend. Moving on, let's go to the road to Atlanta. Let's go to the road to Atlanta, folks. Let me pull up the SEC standings for you. Again, guys, we're a Tennessee loss away in Athens this week and a Texas loss at Kyle Field. Two road teams need to go win on the road. Two road teams need to go win in someone else's house to avoid to avoid six teams being 6-2, maybe 7 if Missouri were to win out. I mean, that's where we're at right now, folks. I mean, that's totally where we're at. But here we go. The SEC standings. Right here as we sit, Tennessee sitting in the top 5-1, Texas A&M sitting at 5-1, Texas sitting at 4-1, Georgia 5-2, Alabama 4-2, Ole Miss 4-2, and Missouri sitting there in 3-2 with some other games to play. So our guy Brad Crawford broke it down a little bit. Go check out the article on 247 Sports. He gave a couple of different scenarios here where it's Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU all have 2 SEC losses. Obviously, Texas A&M and Tennessee do not. But the 2 lost teams, like I mentioned, all still very much into it. Georgia holds the tiebreaker over Texas since the Bulldogs beat Texas, on October 19th. If A&M were to beat Texas at Kyle Field, chaos would honestly ensue, dude. We could have 6 teams be tied with 2 losses. That would be wild. That would be wild. And I'll say this, if there was going to be a multiple team tie, I think right now, best spot we're probably in is the winner of Texas and Texas A&M, unless Texas loses to Arkansas or Texas A&M loses to Auburn next week. Winner of that's going to Atlanta, I think. And then I think if Alabama wins out by beating Oklahoma or winning at Oklahoma and winning again and beating Auburn, I think you're probably going to have the winner of Texas A&M versus Alabama on those tiebreakers shape out. Like the most direct path for Texas right now. The most direct path for Texas. Winning out. You win out, you're in the SEC championship game. If you're Texas A&M, you win out. You beat Auburn, you beat Texas, you're in the SEC championship game. Unless you believe Arkansas beats Texas this week or A&M drops one to Auburn, that's the winner of that game is going to be in Atlanta. And I'll tell you something wild. If Texas were to lose to Arkansas and then go beat Texas A&M, you have LSU versus Alabama in the SEC championship, folks, if Alabama wins out and LSU wins out. Is that not wild? LSU is still in this, folks. Now, they're going to be big Arkansas fans. It all starts with Arkansas beating Texas at noon Eastern this week in Fayetteville. LSU's not out of it, folks. Remember, they have 3 losses, but only 2 are conference with them. They lost to USC to open the year, took a loss to Texas A&M a couple weeks ago, and then lost to Bama on Saturday night. So, again, if Arkansas were to upset Texas, Texas goes on the road and beats A&M in the year. LSU handles their business. Bama handles their business. We would get a rematch of 48 hours ago. That's wild to say. But again, Texas controls their own destiny, wins out. They're in Atlanta. Same with Texas A&M. The most direct path for Tennessee, winning out. So you got 3 teams who truly control their own destiny. Texas, Texas A&M, who play each other in a year, and Tennessee, who will meet their real match this weekend in Athens. And then the most direct path for Alabama to reach the SEC championship game, win out, have Georgia beat Tennessee. Alabama would edge out the other due to conference opponent winning percentage. And they can thank Vanderbilt and South Carolina this year because both those teams have overachieved and helped Alabama strengthen the schedule. Remember, if you had South Carolina, Vanderbilt, you going into the season, you were probably like, that's not stuff. Well, those teams are helping Alabama's opponent winning percentage. Again, Alabama has the tiebreaker, I think, over every team in the SEC except Tennessee because they lost the head-to-head. So that's shaking it up for you right there. Let's spell it out one more time. Texas A&M, Tennessee control their own destiny. Win out, you're in. If Tennessee wins out, they're going to face the winner of Texas versus Texas A&M as long as Texas or Texas A&M doesn't lose to Arkansas or Auburn. For Alabama, win out, win in Norman, beat Auburn. You just need Georgia to take care of Tennessee this weekend at home, which Vegas opened up as a 13.5-point favorite, 9.5-point favorite. That's what we would say right now. And then LSU, everybody's forgetting. Remember, if they're the biggest Arkansas Razorback fans, they're calling the Hogs this week. Woo! Pig, suey. You're hearing that in Baton Rouge this week. If that happens and Texas goes and beats A&M, and LSU handles business in Gainesville, they handle Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia and the boys, and they handle Oklahoma to end the year, they're in the playoffs. So I think sitting pretty right now, you'd probably say, I don't think Arkansas is going to straight up beat Texas. I don't think A&M is going to drop the ball to Auburn. I think the winner of that game is going to be in Atlanta. And again, I mean, I think it's going to be either Tennessee or Alabama. On the fence with this Tennessee-Georgia game. But if you're Alabama, you're sitting pretty either way. You're sitting pretty either way across the board. Let's go look a little bit into the playoff race a little bit. I know we'll have the playoff race. The new CFP rankings come out tomorrow night. Myself, Chris Phillips, Cole Thompson will react to all that at, I believe the playoffs are revealed an hour later this week because of the Champions Classic in Atlanta. You got Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State, Kansas tomorrow night. So you got, hold on, I'm pulling it up. I think it's at 8:30 tomorrow or 8 o'clock. I think it's 8 o'clock, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. It's between games. I think it's right after that Kansas Michigan State game before Kentucky Duke. Remember, that's in the Allstate Arena in Atlanta. We'll talk a little college basketball here in a minute, but they'll release the new CFPs tomorrow. I mean, where does Bama move up? Where does Georgia drop? We'll be interested in seeing all that. But these are really the 6 SEC teams that really have a shot. Sorry, Missouri fans. Sorry, Eli Drinkowitz. Love to have you on the show, Coach Drink. If you'd like to come curse me out about how I'm not counting your team in, I don't even know if against you, which I think they should, if all things are even. But here are the 6 teams and how they stand from the SEC. Just the SEC. Remember, the second college football playoff rankings will be revealed tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Here's Texas right now. 8-1, lost to number 11 Georgia. Wins versus current AP top 25 team, 0. Strength of schedule, 55th. I don't know. Outside of the name. And I think the eye test matters here too, guys. We got to kind of be dividing that. Eye test, resume. I think resume gets you into the dance, gets you into the club. Eye test depends how long you stay on that stage. That's what I always like to say. Remember, resume gets you into the club. That's the cover. That's the cover charge, boys. It's $50 to get in tonight. Maybe $100 depending on where you're at. But how long you stay on that stage is the eye test. What am I seeing? I don't know, man. If Texas doesn't beat Texas A&M and they finish 10-2, what's their best win at Vanderbilt? You could have a real conversation. They should be left out off resume alone. But I'm going to be honest with you here, guys. And we call a spade here on the SEC Unfiltered. That brand is not being left out. Greg Sankey is not allowing them to be left out. I'm just going to say it. He's going to go to bat for Texas. And that's maybe just my opinion, but I just think that's how it is. First, give a shout out to our guy at John Tweet Sports. He made this graphic and posted it today. So I want to give him his flowers. Did a phenomenal job. Very easily readable graphic right here for these 6 teams. But yeah, I mean, no, I got Joe K here. He says Texas has to win out to get in the CFP. Yeah, I think he's right too. I mean, I hate being like that, but let's just say they lose to A&M. They finish 10-2. Best wins at Vanderbilt. Your second best win, maybe Colorado State, who may play for the Mountain West title if UNLV loses one more time. Hell, maybe they beat Boise to win the Mountain West, and Texas played the Mountain West champion and crushed them. I don't know. We're not going down that rabbit hole, but still, Texas' resume is not great. The eye test meets it. They look phenomenal this week. Best offensive performance, complete game, but the resume is not there. Tennessee, number 6, coming in at 8-1. Only loss at Arkansas. Best win against number 9 Alabama at home. 35th ranked strength of schedule. Tennessee, a little bit in that same boat, folks. I mean, outside of the Alabama win, let's say they lose to Georgia this week. They finished 10-2. They beat UTEP. They beat Vandy. They finished 10-2. What's their second best win? At Vandy? I mean, look at Texas and Tennessee. Vanderbilt's helping people this year, guys. At Vandy, I mean, it could be a 6-7 win Vanderbilt team. I don't know. I mean, let's just keep going down the list here a little bit, guys. Let's just keep going down the list a little bit. Alabama coming in at 7-2. Losses at Vanderbilt, at number 6 Tennessee. Wins versus current AP top 25 teams. And again, it don't matter who the CFP rankings are, but at home against Georgia, who was ranked number 11, on the road against LSU, just that dismantling will give them credit there. That's not just a win at Tiger Stadium. That was a beatdown. And then Missouri's still ranked. Call it what it is. Bama, I think, has the best overall resume out of these potential 6 teams if it gets to that. If Texas were to lose to A&M and we have six and 2 teams, maybe 7 with Missouri. Bama 11th strength of schedule. Bama's not being left out if they win out, guys. If they beat Oklahoma and Auburn, they're not being left out, even if they lose in the SEC championship game and collect a 3rd loss. I feel good about them. Ole Miss. Man, is that Kentucky loss ugly. Lost at number 21 LSU. Now, to be fair, Ole Miss, they have only been down 2 minutes of game time all year. And that was the last 2 minutes of the Kentucky game. Because remember, they got walked off by LSU. They led that whole game. So Ole Miss has only been down for 2 minutes. We saw them manhandle Georgia. Again, I said it was the most physically dominated Georgia team under the Kirby Smart team era, probably when he really got it going back in 2017, not his first year in 16. Then I can remember Bama's beating them a lot, but not like that physically. Ole Miss's best wins, obviously Georgia. Again, South Carolina is helping guys like Alabama and Ole Miss as well. Again, South Carolina should be on Alabama's. That should be 4 for Alabama. And then the 23rd strength of schedule. I think Ole Miss is probably in because when they got their big wins going to matter at the end of the year against Georgia. And I don't think they lose to Florida. And I don't think they lose to Mississippi State. I feel pretty good about Ole Miss. And eye test tells me I think Ole Miss may be the most complete team in the SEC. Georgia, 7-2. Losses at Alabama, at Ole Miss, number 9 and 10. That's not bad at all. Wins at Texas and against Clemson. First ranked strength of schedule. Yeah, for sure. Georgia Tech's not a bad team in the year. Georgia, probably 10-2, folks, is going to get in, I think, too. I think they're going to get in, too. And sorry, guys, you can't see the bottom one, but that's Texas A&M. They're coming in at what? With 2 losses, 7-2, best win, Notre Dame, and then they're lost to Notre Dame and South Carolina, and then their best wins is LSU and Missouri, 21st ranked strength of schedule. A&M's interesting. They're at 10-2. If they were 11-1, they get in the SEC championship game. They're in if they beat Texas. But if they finish 10-2, they can't. They'd be 9-3. They can't lose to Texas. They can't. So they finish 10-3. They can't lose that. They can't lose that game. That's a must win. Auburn's a must win. They have to win out. They have to win out. Obviously, New Mexico State speaks for itself as well. A&M's got to win out. But I think these are the real 6 contenders. I know Josh Pate said he thinks 5 get in. Maybe with some chaos, we'll see, depending what I think happens with Indiana, Ohio State. I think how Indiana looks in that game will be key. They can keep it 2 scores or under. I don't know how you keep them out at 11-1. If it's 3 scores, it's a blowout. But just wanted to look at this. Feel good if you're a Bama fan that you're probably in. Probably feel pretty good about Ole Miss because of timing. Georgia, if they can win this week. Now, if Georgia loses to Tennessee, they're out, just like A&M if they don't beat Texas. Teams I'd be worried, though, I think got to be a little itchy, is if Texas is sitting there at 10-2, Tennessee 10-2, and A&M 10-2. The good thing for all 3 of those teams, they all control their own destiny. Texas can win out. Tennessee can win out. Texas A&M can win out. They all control their own destiny. But it's weird to say the teams that don't control their own destiny, I probably feel the best about. We'll see. I still think the SEC gets 4. But remember, college football playoff rankings, the second ones come out tomorrow. Myself, Chris Phillips, and Cole Thompson all will have a reaction video like we did last week. Probably coming at you around, 9:15 with it at 8:30. It'll be quick. They'll have to get it out quickly because they're going to have to move into that Duke-Kentucky basketball game. But moving on, big weekend. Stop sharing this. Big weekend in SEC basketball, folks. Big weekend across the board in SEC basketball. We got to start off with Auburn, right? Got to start with Auburn getting the big win at the Toyota Center after the plane debacle, which we could talk about that for a long time. If we want to be completely honest, folks, we could talk about that one for a long, long time from that perspective. I hadn't seen it. They were almost in Houston and the plane had to get turned around. It was the Ja'Kai Howard kid and who was it? It was 2 guys that didn't play a whole lot. But anyways, Auburn gets the 74-69 win. Janai Broome was really good. I went back and watched the game again because this was going on Saturday night. I wasn't really locked into it. But Janai Broome, played 33 minutes, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks. Dylan Cardwell, the front line was really good. The guy really stood out. Tahad Pettiford, 21 points, 7 for 12 from the field, 5 from 8 from the. If he plays like that, He fits this offense, reminds me a little bit of Jared Harper. Houston's going to be fine, folks. They play Alabama here in a couple of weeks in Vegas. But Auburn, maybe playing the best basketball in the country to open up the year. Remember, there's different phases here in college basketball. You get hot and cold. You can't play well all year, and you can't play bad all year. So Auburn, that was a phenomenal win by them. Big-time win when you factor in the distractions of them having to go all the way back to Auburn and then flying home later and getting locked in. But Todd Pettiford took over that game late, and that was the difference. Baylor getting the 72-67 win in Dallas over Arkansas. I mean, Scott Drew went to a zone and Arkansas couldn't do anything. I mean, they couldn't do anything. Again, I don't know why sometimes Cal, these zones just completely take him out of his game when he saw a guy like Reed Shepherd go win one-on-one battles and just go take advantage of his mismatch advantage. I mean, if it wasn't for Adu Thero, they may lose this game by 20 points. I mean, he finished with 24 points, 10 of 15 from the field, 2 of 4 from beyond the arc. 31 minutes. He played phenomenal. Nelly Davis didn't look great. Only 8 points. And Boogie Flam was fine. The true freshman at point guard. Big Z, not a whole lot. Only 5 boards, 2 points. 67 points for Arkansas. This was a Baylor team. It was coming off a loss, folks. I mean, again, they had lost to Gonzaga. They got rocked by Gonzaga almost by 50 points. And Arkansas, I think Arkansas is going to improve as the season goes on. But it's still, we just stuck in the same John Calipari offense where just you can't get anything going if someone throws something at you, which, I mean, it was like a 1-3-1 half-court press, 1-3-1 zone. That Scott Drew threw at them, and they just could never get out of it. If I was an Arkansas fan, I was very disappointed in this. They really haven't looked great, though, all year. I mean, not bad. Still a top 20 team. I don't really know how you get real fired up about that one. And then Tennessee, I thought they had a big boy win. Beating Pat Kelsey, first-year head coach at Louisville, coming over from Charleston. This is a bad matchup for Louisville. Again, where Charleston runs a similar style to Alabama, where they're trying to get up and down the floor, shoot a lot of threes. Tennessee held them to 55 points. Where Tennessee usually matches up. Rick Barnes and them are a physical brand of basketball. They play well against the teams who try to get up and down. They slow it down. They get into their style of play very favorable against these kind of teams. Remember against South Carolina last year, another physical defensive team. It get Tennessee out of their funk a little bit. Thought Felix Okapara was great, 10 points, 6 boards. We had Zakai Ziegler, Chaz Lanier both going for 19, both going 17 for 13, 17 for 15 across the board. And Lanier, not much from the bench, but I thought overall they just big boy physically dominated them kind of from the start. I mean, it was within 10 to 15 points in the first half, a lot of the second half. I watched a lot of this one live. But overall, Tennessee just did what they did to these teams at times. Just a bad early season matchup for Pat Kelsey and his Louisville Cardinals this early in the year. I mean, what did Tennessee hold them to? 25% shooting from beyond the arc and 26% just field goal percentage, 16 for 60 just in general. That's not going to get done, but that's a typical Rick Barnes Tennessee team. Bad matchup, but again, I'm sure Pat Kelsey, when he scheduled this, was like, hey, I want to be tested early. I know it's my first year. I don't have my guys in here, but this was always going to be a struggle for them. Love this matchup for Tennessee. Tennessee dominated, though, boys. That was a big boy victory for Rick Barnes in Tennessee. But in tonight's action, we had a couple games tonight as well. Let me go over the rest of Saturday's action. Kentucky got a 172 win over Bucknell. Kentucky's going to be shooting lights out, man. I love the Dayton transfer, Kobe Bryant. He went for 20 points the other night as well. But in tonight's action, we got currently Texas A&M is up 92-64 over Lamar with 3 minutes left in the second. Oklahoma's up 73-57 with 7 seconds left. They ended up winning just on the dot right there. Just finished on me right there, 73-57. I saw they were trailing a little bit in that one. Alabama, 72-64 win over Will Wade and McNeese State. Wasn't a great win. They got up 16, 20 points at one point, but just couldn't put them away. McNeese kept coming back. Alabama looks like they're all still trying to fit in their role. They're so deep this year. Just outside of Mark Sears, you don't know what to expect out of them. Again, the front court looks phenomenal with Clifford Amari coming in, the true freshman Aiden Sherrell, Grant Nelson looking healthier in his spot right there. But I think McNeese is going to win that Southern Conference, Southland Conference. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament team just like they were last year with Will Wade. Will Wade will move on to get another job at some point. Because remember, what he got fired for is now legal. What he got fired for at LSU is now legal, pay for play. But Alabama, they got a big one on Friday night going to West Lafayette to play Purdue. So that'll be a big test. But again, it wasn't pretty. These last 2 games haven't been pretty for Alabama. Arkansas State, who's projected to win the Sun Belt, and then McNeese State projected 2 NCAA tournament teams, but wasn't Alabama's prettiest performance across the league. But I'd say Auburn looking the best right now on the hardwood. looking the best across the hardwood. Let's get into this. This is something the SEC Unfiltered channel posted my graphic, folks. Posted my graphic ranking the basketball arenas in the Southeastern Conference. Now, this is a combination of a tough environment over probably the last 10 to 12 years and kind of how nice the arena is. Again, this is subjective as it gets, folks. This is as subjective as it gets across the board. Is Neville Arena historically a great environment? No, it's not even that old. They used to play at Beard Eves Memorial Coliseum, guys. I'm just saying, when I factor in the atmosphere of this arena and kind of the nicest and just allure to it, this is how it's ranked. Again, subjective. I went Neville Arena, the house that Bruce put. I mean, this is a tough place to go get a win, guys. Really nice, compact arena. I think Neville's number one. Rupp Arena, historic arena. Is it always been tough to play under Cal? Yes, but teams just came in and got it done. I think with Mark Pope, it's going to get back to it. Can move up to number one. But what Bruce and Pearl and them have done at Neville is unbelievable. Bud Walton, come on. The Palace, that's got to be 3. People gave me hell on this one. Alabama, Coleman Coliseum. Alabama doesn't lose a lot at home, folks. You can call it the airplane hangar, whatever. Do they need a new arena? Yes, but Alabama performs well historically at Coleman Coliseum under Mark Godfrey throughout, and definitely under Nate Oates. They had one of the longest SEC winning streaks there going into last year until Tennessee broke it. I don't know why that one's a bad look. Maybe you could move Thompson Bowen up against it, but again, Alabama didn't lose to South Carolina at home. So you can get mad about that, Tennessee fans, if you want. I got Thompson Bowen. I got Tommy B, Food World Center, whatever they call it now. It'll always be Thompson Bowen, sitting there at 5. Nice, big arena. They usually win there. I just gave Coleman the edge because of recent success there. The Stephen O'Connell Center at Florida, the O-Dome. Under Billy Donovan, you couldn't go win there. It was almost impossible. Now, yeah, still a tough place to play, but I still have Billy D in my head. Nice arena. Been there a couple of times. I have them at 5. The Moody Center actually have not been hurt. It's really nice. I would like to get there. I'm going to give it the edge because of how nice, how new it is. Again, it's early in the league to say if it's a tough place to play, but Texas has been good the last few years. The Hump, under Rick Stansbury, this place used to be hostile. I think under Chris Jans, it's starting to get back there a little bit. That's why I got it just a little bit above. And then you got Reed Arena. It's a nice arena, but under Buzz Williams, it's been a tough place to play. It has. Again, I worked there. We took recruits there all the time. Not a nice arena. The concourses kind of aren't great. They kind of suck, for lack of a better term. But again, I think it's a tough place to play. This is one. Pavilion. I want to put it higher. I want to. Nice arena. Carbon copy of Neville Arena. Not a bad seat in the house. Real pro kind of feel. Love it. I've been to multiple games there. It's just not a hostile place to play yet. I think Chris Beard will get it there. It's just not there yet. Once they start playing well, and I think that's going to happen this year, going into next year, this could be a top 6, 7 arena, I think, when you factor in how nice it is and how hostile of an arena it is. Number 11, Colonial Life Arena. Been there once. I mean, there just hadn't been a lot of success there. They may have a nice hot dog. They may have a nice hamburger. The beer may be cold. It's a nice arena, but it's not a hard environment to go into outside of last year. I mean, like 2 weeks, not even a week ago, North Florida went there and got a win. So I think it's fine right there. Memorial Gymnasium. When I was a kid with Kevin Stallings and even Bryce Drew, I mean, this was a tough place to go get a win at. I mean, Matt Friegi, Foster, and the boys, you weren't winning there a lot, but it's fell off. I was there last year. It's a unique environment, obviously, because the benches are behind the goals. If you've never been, it's like watching a Broadway play, I guess, a basketball game. Because, I mean, the floor is elevated, like I mentioned. The benches are behind the goal. It's a unique environment. It really is. But it just hasn't been very hostile recently because under Stackhouse, I don't think they're going to be very great this year. They just hadn't really been. I'm telling you guys, back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s under Kevin Stallings, that was a house of nightmares. Now, is it going to be fine for Mark Byington this year? Maybe. But again, once they start winning some more games, I'd move it up. I'd say the Lloyd Noble Center, actually haven't been there, but just talking to people who have been, it's not a great arena. It kind of looks like a concrete palace, if I'm being just completely honest there. And then you have Stegman, who again worked there. Stegman could definitely be better. It could maybe be moved up a spot or two. But overall, though, I'm not hating where I have this right now. And then 15, Mizzou Arena. I see Missouri fans getting mad about it. Again, I've been there once. It was okay. It wasn't bad. Maybe when Mike Anderson was there, it was really good. But recently it had. I mean, I know 2 years ago, Dennis Gates and the boys played well with Kobe Baker then. But, like, I don't know. Again, somebody's got to be 15th and 16th. I think that's where people forget. And then finally, one you could maybe have a little higher. Again, guys, this is all subjective. And I feel like I could really give a real ratings if I went to every one of them this year and went back to back to back. I'm going to go to the PMAC. Again, been there for basketball games, been there for graduations, had cousins go there. It's old. It has a lot of history, but the PMAC is not a great arena right now. And LSU and Matt McMahon have not been great. It's one of those things, too. More people show up for women's basketball games to see Kim Mulkey and them than they do Matt McMahon's club right now. That's not a bash for Matt McMahon and them. Just LSU in order. They care about football, basketball, and then a gap in men's basketball. And if it's good, like it was with John Brady at the time when Brandon Bass, Glenn Beatty, and them were there, yeah, they'll support it. But traditionally, they don't. And they know they need a new arena, too. So I just wanted to explain it a little bit here. Guys, tell me where I'm wrong in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I probably am wrong across the board somewhere. Probably could add the pavilion up a little more, but I'm waiting to see some more wins. Colonial Life, nice arena, just not a lot of wins. Memorial Gymnasium, would love to have it higher. Just recency bias, not a lot of wins there. But maybe even move the PMAC up higher. Maybe even move Missouri down a little bit. I'm sorry, Missouri fans. But you're going to be right or wrong. I think I got the top 5 right. Maybe move Tennessee ahead of Coleman Coliseum. I think there could be a place for that. But no place is harder to go win at than Neville Arena right now. It's a nice arena. Rupp is Rupp, speaks for itself. Bud Walton speaks for itself. I think Coleman Coliseum is a tough place to play. Call it. There are bad seats in there now, folks. That's coming from an Alabama alum. It's probably one of the worst places to watch a basketball game, but it is a very tough place to play, and the concourses have gotten nicer. Tommy B, Food Center, whatever you want to call it. I think you could flip-flop them, but again, I'm going to give the edge because Coleman Coliseum has been a tougher place to play as of late. Yeah, Joe K's right. And if you just use by aesthetics, Moody Center would be number 1. That's why I mixed it up. It's a mixture of aesthetics, how nice everything is. Like Memorial Coliseum looks like it hadn't had any renovations since 1975, 1980, and that's being nice when I was there last year. It's kind of a mixture of both. It's subjective, folks. Just wanted to explain myself. A couple more things here. Let's go to a Week 12 look ahead, folks. Let's go to the Week 12 look ahead. Let me pull up the schedule. We got some, obviously the big headliner, Tennessee at Georgia, and I was honestly shocked at the opening line of that, folks. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll talk about that one first. Tennessee at Georgia, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, ABC. That's going to be Herb Street and Fowler and the boys. UJ opened up minus 13.5. It's down to 10 now. Point total 48.5. I don't know. I got to give a prediction tomorrow, folks. Can Georgia fix their offensive line issues in a week? I don't think they can. But at the same time, do you see Kirby Smart and them losing at home with everything on the line? This is it for Georgia. I think this is maybe a little hit for Tennessee, too. I hate saying that, Tennessee fans, but I don't know if 10-2 get you in because after the Alabama win, if you were to beat Vandy, that is your next best win. This is a big one, guys. You can make a case a lot of ways. I'm probably going to take Tennessee in the points. 10's a lot, and I don't feel comfortable with Georgia right now against anyone giving 10 points. But to start the day, Texas at Arkansas, 12 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Texas currently favored by 13.5, over under 57.5. Arkansas coming off a bye week. Texas needs this one. No one's a bigger fan of Arkansas than the LSU Tigers. Remember, Texas lost this week. Texas beats A&M. LSU gets back into the SEC championship game. ULM at Auburn, 12:45 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Auburn favored by 24, over under 45.5. ULM's trying to get their 6th win here, folks. Auburn better be careful not looking ahead to A&M and Alabama. Auburn coming off a bye week. They need to be focused. Does Peyton Thorne go? He didn't practice at all last week. Hugh Freeze said today. Maybe we see Hank Brown. It's a sneaky one. This is where Auburn lost to New Mexico State last year. New Mexico State was better than ULM. They don't have Diego Pavia, but still a dangerous game with Brian Vincent and them. Murray State at Kentucky. 1:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. There's no line. A lot of rumors going around about Mark Stoops. Can't lose this one to the Racers. Mercer at Alabama, 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. No line for that one. Mercer's not bad. Coming in at what, 9-1, 10-1 right now? 9-1, yeah, first in the Southern League. Alabama, I'd expect to see Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, some of those backup quarterbacks in that one before their stretch run against Oklahoma and Auburn. LSU at Florida, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. LSU favored by 4.5, over under 54.5. Does DJ Lagway play? How interested is LSU in this one with their season a little bit on the line? Again, if Arkansas beats Texas, they're right back in this because Texas could certainly beat Texas A&M. They'll probably know. Will that affect them? No, because the players aren't going to really be locked in if Arkansas is beating Texas. Let's be honest. They'll be getting to the stadium when this game's at half. So they're not really going to be watching again. There'll be someone on staff keeping up. But really, how can Brian Kelly get this team to bounce back after that beatdown at home last week? That'll be key. Traditionally, LSU does not play well the week after the Alabama game. They're going to have to if DJ Lagway plays. If it's the third string quarterback again, if it's Aiden, I don't see any way. I mean, it may be close. I just don't see a way Florida wins this game if it's Aiden Warner. I just don't. That's nothing against him, but a lot of teams struggle with their third string quarterback. Missouri at South Carolina, 4:15 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. South Carolina favored by 11.5 right now. Point total 44.5. Connor Tolson's going to be out. Brady Cook. Shane Beamer's never beat Eli Drinkins. Remember, these two coaches cannot stand on each other. Would probably not piss on each other if they were on fire. Excuse my language. Someone's going to be real arrogant after this game. South Carolina's looking to go get 9 wins. That's real. Missouri, according to Drink, still trying to go get in the playoffs. But again, I think another 8-9 win season would be good for them. This is an under-the-radar game in the SEC here. It is. It is. And remember, these games for teams like Ole Miss, Alabama, it matters. The more South Carolina keeps winning when it comes to quality wins in the playoffs. And then the big one, we talked about that one, Tennessee, Georgia, and then New Mexico State at Texas A&M, 7:45 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network at Kyle Field. A&M favored by 39.5, the point total 54.5. The St. Diego Pavi is New Mexico State Aggies, but Texas A&M coming off a bye week before they head to the final stretch. They head to Auburn next Saturday night before coming back home to face Texas in the big one with a potential college football playoff on the line. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 SEC games this week, or SEC teams in action. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 SEC matchups, interconference play across the board. I will give you those predictions on Thursday. And let's quickly review the Week 11 money-making weekend predictions. I went 7-2, folks, or 7-3. Texas minus 21, covered that one with ease. Georgia Ole Miss first half under 27.5. I believe they were at 20. Covered that one with ease. Lost Georgia minus 2.5. Obviously, Ole Miss won the game. Won by Alabama first quarter pick. I had Alabama was going to be up at the end of the first quarter. Won that one with ease. Lost UCF plus 3 against Arizona State. I'm sure Gus is fuming knowing him losing to his former pupil in Auburn, offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham. Oregon minus 14.5 first half against Maryland, lost that one. But then I won out. Miami, Georgia Tech under 64. Army, North Texas under 64.5. Vanderbilt team total under 20.5. Thank you, South Carolina, for holding them under 7. That was a win. And then Tennessee got the half, got the hook win, boys. Tennessee minus 6.5. First quarter win. They were up by 7, up 7-0. Good job, Tennessee. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So reviewing that one, I went 7-3 this week. Up to 45%. Remember, folks, the goal, 55% at the end of the year. 55%. 55%. I'm holding myself to that one. That's going to be a winner. We still got multiple weeks. We still got about, 3 weeks left, conference championship week, and then we got throughout the playoffs. We're going to be fine, guys. We're going to be fine. But, guys, we went 70 minutes. 70 minutes. We'll have a guest on Thursday's show. It's going to be predictions. It's going to be a fun one. We're going to have to continue more college basketball to talk about, guys. We're getting in the midst of that. We'll have the Champions Classic tomorrow, college football, playoff rankings revealed. Second one tomorrow. Again, like I mentioned, myself, Chris Phillips, Cole Thompson will react to that probably around 9 p.m., 9:15 Eastern, probably maybe 9:30, depending on where we go. But remember, CFP reaction, 8:30 tomorrow. That's when they release it with Greg, Joey Galloway, Reese Davis, and them. But today, we reviewed a lot. We reviewed all the Week 11 action, big wins for Alabama and Ole Miss. Talk college basketball across the board. Auburn with a big win right now. They're looking like the best team in the SEC right now. Again, long season. Big win for Tennessee as well. Big boy win. We talked about the road to Atlanta. LSU's not out of it. They're big Arkansas fans this week. Again, Arkansas beats Texas. Texas beats A&M. LSU would, I think, win that 6-2 tiebreaker to be them in Alabama if Alabama were to win out. But as of this moment, if you're a betting man, remember, 3 teams control their own destiny. Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Texas to get into Atlanta. Alabama feels pretty good. If they can win out, they'll have a lot of tiebreakers over every team not named Tennessee. And Eli Drinkowitz will tell you Missouri's still in it, guys. But no, so we went over the road of Atlanta, looked at a little CFP race for the SEC teams. It's interesting. You don't feel as good about the teams who control their own destiny, but you feel pretty good about the teams who could finish 10-2 like Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss. But the good thing for teams like Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Texas, It's outside of anybody else's hands. You go handle business. You'll be in Atlanta or in early December. And you'll be playing a playoff game as well. Talked a little college basketball, like I mentioned, went over my arena rankings. I'm sure a lot of people like that. We did the Week 12 look ahead. Remember, big one, Georgia, Tennessee, baby. Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia's backed against the wall. What are we going to see? Can Kirby get them turned around? And then we went 7-3 this week in the money-making weekend. We'll be at 55% at the end of the year, guys. But I appreciate you joining us on this Monday night's episode. I will see you Thursday. Y'all have a great remaining rest of your week.